Now, at the same time that you have to appear weak where you are strong, you also, according to Sun Tzu, you also have to appear strong where you are weak. So how is Trump doing that today? Well, Trump is flooding the media, or at least the alternative media, and to some extent Fox News and Newsmax and radio shows like the Howie Carr Show and the Mark Levin Show and so on. He's flooding the media with his legal team presenting evidence of fraud. Rudy Giuliani holding that big conference in Pennsylvania, which was widely shared and viewed across the country. Show the evidence of fraud, the affidavits, and eyewitnesses coming forth and so on. In fact, flood the airwaves with all of this information to appear incredibly strong, like you have an overwhelming mountain of evidence, which they do, by the way, but really tout this, really focus on this and make this your big public effort, that this is how we're going to win. We're going to have evidence and witnesses and affidavits and statistical analyses, and we're going to have experts testify, and we're going to convince the courts, okay? Now, what if I told you that this was not really Trump's strategy of how to win this? What if I told you that I believe Trump expects this effort to fail? Because I do think that. Then what's all this effort for? It is to force the enemy to expend resources to counter this apparent strength of yours. This forces the enemy to maneuver their attention, their focus, their personnel, and their money into these court battles where the Democrats will have to expend a lot of time and resources and focus and so on in order to try to fight this in the courts. Well, Trump doesn't necessarily expect to win in the courts. And the reason why this is irrelevant, even at SCOTUS, even the SCOTUS decision is irrelevant. Well, I shouldn't say irrelevant. I mean, he could achieve victory at SCOTUS, and that would then alleviate the need for the rest of this. But if he fails at SCOTUS, the failure is irrelevant because recall that the theater of war for this conflict is not civil court. That is not the theater of war. The theater of war for this is global cyber warfare, assaults on the United States of America. National defense is the theater of this war. And those who have engaged in election theft, election rigging, and the dissemination of propaganda to distort or interfere with accurate information about this, all those parties, which includes big tech and the corporate media and other parties, they were all named in that 2018 executive order by Trump, which tells you something, right? Back to Sun Tzu, number one, the war is won before it ever begins. It is won through planning. It's the preparation for the war that determines the victor. Trump named the enemies in this war in 2018. That's how far ahead he was in this. And he watched the election theft take place on November 3rd. And he is now engaging in classic Sun Tzu activity to appear weak where he is strong and to appear strong where he is weak, which is actually the civil courts. He might lose in the civil courts. And that's going to embolden the left-wing media to say, look, he lost. He lost this case. He lost that case. This court threw it out. This court rejected, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? None of that matters. Do you know why? Because who has jurisdiction in international warfare against the United States? The Department of Defense, not 9 justices sitting on a bench in D.C. The Department of Defense, has jurisdiction. And their commander-in-chief is named Donald J. Trump. Now, one of the next important strategies of Sun Tzu is to be mobile and attack in places where the enemy does not expect you. So where do we see examples of that? DoD personnel raiding the server farm, which we believe took place on November 6th. So think about this. While the left-wing media was celebrating Joe Biden's, quote, win on November 5th and 6th and around that time, what Trump was actually doing was landing special operations forces troops in Germany and raiding a CIA server farm, during which we believe there was a firefight, by the way, and 5 U.S. soldiers were killed, and 1 CIA officer was killed. I covered that yesterday. And the servers were secured by the DoD. That was entirely unexpected. In fact, at the last minute, the CIA had to bring in their paramilitary forces from Afghanistan to try to defend the server farm in Germany, and they failed. And part of that, by the way, is because the special forces units had some cooperation from elements of the German government. Maybe we'll be able to get into that in a future update. So you raid the server farms while the Democrats in America are celebrating on CNN, thinking they've won the ballot stuffing contest. See, so Trump has them he's convinced them to, quote, win in the wrong arena. That arena doesn't even count. In fact, the December 14th deadline that everybody talks about for the states to submit their electoral votes, even that day doesn't count. You know why? Because, well, actually for 2 reasons. This gets to, I'm sorry for the long answer here, but it'll make sense. This gets to another key principle of Swinsit, which is that timing is everything. Timing is absolutely everything in warfare. And so when you are ensnaring your enemy, you can't spring the trap too early, or they won't be in deep enough to where you can do real damage to them. So in the red versus blue example that I mentioned at the top of this podcast, you want the enemy to advance geographically deep into your territory, so deep that they get lost in it. They think they've won everything. Their supply lines are now very, very long, and now at some point they are spread out and their flanks are exposed. So how do you do this in an election? You make sure that they go all in with the fraud deep at every level, so they commit fraud in the ballot stuffing, and then they commit fraud of the officials of the states certifying the fraudulent votes as legal or legitimate. Now you have criminal charges that you can file against those officials. And then if you wait all the way to December 14th, to where these states then submit these final results to Congress, now you've got them. They have committed the full fraud. They are all in. It is irrefutable. There's no more question about the officials and the state leaders. In the case of Georgia, perhaps Governor Kemp and the secretary, the state secretaries involved in elections and so on. All of these people are now complicit. You've caught them all because they have carried out the fraud. And Trump is allowing this to take place because he has all the evidence, the irrefutable evidence of the fraud. And he also knows that this entire cyber attack on America took place in a theater of war that's under the control of, frankly, military tribunals and the Department of Defense. So now all Trump is doing right now is letting the Democrat fish swim into the net. He has cast a very large net, and he's letting them all ensnare themselves in that net. And he's about to pull that net up and have a big, big catch followed by a giant fish fry for the whole town. This is going to be an epic catch. So in terms of timing, do not think that this is all going to be resolved before December 13th. In fact, it won't. And on December 14th, I fully expect the states to submit their electoral results to Congress and to then claim that Biden has won. And then the media, including Fox News, by the way, on December 15th and 16th and so on, they will say, it's over. Trump must concede now for sure. The votes have been submitted. You can't reverse that, they'll say, they'll falsely claim. Of course you can. In cases of fraud violates the very principle of this. They've already been caught. Once Trump declares the election to be an act of war and to be null and void, and then presents the evidence that he has from the server farm, or multiple server farms, and the evidence from Kraken, then guess what? Yes, you can retroactively reverse the electoral fraud. In fact, even the Supreme Court can nullify all of those votes after December 14th. The Supreme Court could nullify this election not only up to January 20th, but even retroactively after January 20th. Did you know that? There's precedent for it. It can absolutely happen. When there's evidence of fraud that has overturned the results of an election, there is really no time limit on how far back a court can retroactively order some kind of solution to that fraud. It could be removing someone from office. It's happened before. In Senate seats, for example, in governorships and so on. Read your history, folks. This has happened many times before. You declare the election fraud. Sometimes it's been years later that the courts have finally been given the evidence of fraud, and they can overturn the result. And now, one more Sun-Tzu principle here is that the best way to win a war is to win without fighting. And how do you win without fighting? You defeat the enemy before they ever have a chance to contest you kinetically or on the battleground. You convince them that they are defeated by showing them the overwhelming evidence that they are caught, they are defeated. How do you do that in this election? And by the way, in doing so, you spare the country from the kinetic conflict. Trump doesn't want blood in the streets, and frankly, I don't either. Nobody who loves America wants blood in the streets. I know some people are willing to spill blood to defend this country, but that's a different argument. Trump doesn't want this outcome decided by rifle fire. So you beat the enemy without fighting. How do you do that? You gather all the evidence, and then you extract people, and you put them on rendition flights. This has been happening. I've covered this on previous podcasts. So you get all the evidence from the servers, the CIA server farm in Frankfurt, for example, and then, which happened on November 6th, then you go pick up Gina Haspel. You put her on a flight, you fly her out over international waters, on a non-government charter plane, and you say, hey, Gina, guess what? Take a look at these files that we found on your servers in Frankfurt. Oh, look, you committed acts of warfare against the United States of America. Yeah, and you know what the penalty is for treason during a time of war? Yeah, you guessed it. That's right. Bullet to the head. So how about this? Why don't you tape this confession, sign this document, give us all of your sources, name everybody involved, and we will allow you to live out the rest of your life with immunity to all of these charges. You'll never be arrested. You'll never see a day in a dark hole in Gitmo, and you'll never be prosecuted. What kind of deal do you think that do you think she'd take that deal? Absolutely. Absolutely. Which leads to another Sun-Tzu principle, which is when you have an army surrounded, you must always leave them an out, because you never want to surround an army and force them to fight to the death. You have to allow these enemies to keep their lives by confessing. And so the way you win without fighting, then in summary, is you put these people on planes, rendition flights as they're called, you show them the evidence that you have, you get them to confess, and you give them an out. And the out is, again, you'll never be prosecuted for this. Instead, history will judge them. Because as all of this comes out, think about how shameful it will be to have been one of these people, and you will be named even though you won't be prosecuted. You'll be named in the history books as having attempted to carry out a failed coup, attempted to carry out warfare against the United States. You got caught, you got outsmarted by the orange man, and now history will mock you forever. You will live in shame. You will never have a government job again. You'll never have security clearance again. You are unemployable. You won't ever have a book deal, and you won't ever be a guest on CNN, because probably CNN is going to be seized by the government anyway, or shut down or something like that. So this is the solution. How do you win without fighting? You overwhelm the enemy with the evidence, you get them to confess, and you give them an out. you allow them to keep their lives. And this is, I believe, exactly what's happening right now. This is 孙子兵法, military doctrine, art of war, psychological operations, 4D chess, if you want to call it that. This is what I believe is happening right now. And the great misunderstanding of the Democrats is that they don't even know the battlefield on which they're playing. Again, they think they're playing this out in the courts, the civil courts, and they think they're playing it in the media, and they think they control the outcome by censoring tweets. Okay? Think how stupid they are. They are being outmaneuvered and outsmarted by a tactician named Donald J. Trump, also with other brilliant tacticians around him, Michael Flynn, Ezra Cohen, Watnick, Chris Miller, and other people I've talked about before. They are massively outmaneuvering the Democrats, and they have set a stage where the Democrats will hang themselves and eventually will be forced to confess to their crimes, and they will be defeated both politically and also in the public space when all of this is made public. Because part of the agreement that these people are no doubt being presented with is, yeah, we won't prosecute you, we won't throw you in a dark hole, but your name is going to be known for all of history. You and your name will be shamed. And that's quite a lot of torture, actually, without having to torture people. Nobody wants to, use a pair of pliers and pull fingernails out of a bunch of Democrats. No, let them live with the shame of who they are and what they try to do and the fact that they got caught and that they got outsmarted by the guy that they called a stupid buffoon. That is a living hell, to live with yourself. And when you're caught like that and you're shamed like that, and I would expect a lot of these Democrats to wake up one day and put a bullet in their own head. That's exactly what will happen. They will kill themselves, which is their choice, Just make sure they're using hollow points. You don't want to mess that up. You don't want to put like a nice clean hole through your head with a full metal jacket round. They can call me for advice if they want. I can help them choose the ammo that's going to get the job done if they want to do it themselves. And don't use 9mm while you're at it, by the way. Get yourself a proper 45 ACP with a hollow point, okay? Do it the right way. Get a 1911 pistol. If you're going to blow your brains out, at least do it with some class, okay? Give me some little polymer 9mm pea shooter. All right, so in the interest of time here, I'm going to have to skip ahead. We're already at like an hour and 20 minutes, and I apologize. There's just a lot to cover today. And I have other things, other responsibilities as well, posting articles and so on, running the content system that powers naturalnews.com. So I'm going to skip ahead to, I think, the last section for today. And whatever I miss here, I'll cover tomorrow. I will have another podcast that posts tomorrow on Sunday. And this section, I call it The Circle is Complete, the Kraken, and how it feeds into the military intelligence witnesses who are going to testify. So there was a tweet put out by a channel called America First. It says, Sidney Powell has U.S. military intelligence agents ready to testify that the Michigan/Dominion tabulation was able to be tampered with by foreign actors. Military intelligence testifying about actual foreign capacity to interfere. Okay, that's the tweet. Now, if you read the Sidney Powell lawsuit or complaint for Georgia, and this is available on her website, defendingtherepublic.org, it cites a former electronic intelligence analyst who worked under the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion. And he did, in fact, in that complaint, say that the Dominion software was accessed by international parties working in collusion with Communist China and also Iran. Boom. Take us back to the beginning here. Why was Iran's nuclear weapons guy taken out? Yeah, it's starting to connect. Anyway, this was done to monitor, to alter the elections and to alter the outcome and give Joe Biden the win. There's another section that also says that This expert has analyzed the Dominion software system and concluded that it was compromised, that it was actually built to be compromised. And it actually reads in the complaint, quote, by using servers and employees connected with rogue actors and hostile foreign influences combined with numerous easily discoverable leaked credentials, Dominion neglectfully allowed foreign adversaries to access data and intentionally provided access to their infrastructure in order to monitor and manipulate elections, including the most recent one in 2020. Now, let me introduce Dr. Keshavarz Nia. It's Keshavarz hyphen Naya, I guess is probably how it's pronounced. I'm just going to call him, well, I guess I can pronounce that, Keshavarz Naya. Okay, this guy is now, he's made statements under oath to Sidney Powell, and he's a cybercrimes investigator. He's worked with the CIA, the NSA, U.S. military counterintelligence, probably under the DIA, and also the FBI. And he's just an all-around badass cybersecurity guy, and probably a brilliant mathematician, come to think of it. And he says, quote, I've previously discovered major exploitable vulnerabilities in DVS, which is Dominion, and ES and S, which is another voting system, that permit a nefarious operator to perform sensitive functions via its built-in covert backdoor. The backdoor ... can also be used to conduct illicit activities such as shifting votes, deleting votes, or adding votes in real time. He then says, quote, I conclude with high confidence that the election 2020 data were altered in all battleground states, got it, all battleground states, resulting in hundreds of thousands of votes that were cast for President Trump to be transferred to Vice President Biden. Boom. Period. This is what's going before the courts. Well, SCOTUS eventually here. Now, why is this such a big deal? You might say, well, that's just one guy's analysis, one guy's opinion. But it isn't. This, I believe, is a result of Kraken, remember the cyber warfare program, gathering information, DIA analysis of information, DOD raiding the server farms, taking the servers into DIA for analysis, and then taking those results and handing them over to certain high security experts like this gentleman, who is then able to testify before the Supreme Court that yes, the data were altered. We have proof of it. So it's not one guy's opinion. How would he know these things unless he had access to transaction logs or other metadata that showed him that this election theft actually took place? There's no way he could know this without having additional information. You can't get this just from reading the user manual. You can't get this just from looking at the statistics of the results. You're outside the box. This guy is inside the box. He's got data that the rest of us haven't seen yet. So what this tells me is that when he testifies before the Supreme Court, he's going to drop some bombshells on the court, bombshells that we have not seen yet, bombshells that we don't even know about. So when you wonder why Sidney Powell, when she puts into her complaints these very strong statements, oh, these servers were designed to be compromised. They were built to have covert backdoor access, to alter elections and to switch votes from one party to the other and so on. When she says those things, trust me when I tell you, she's not making that up. She's not sitting there in a hotel room in D.C., you know, with a pack of cards, like throwing cards all over the floor and just picking some, oh, the nine of spades, that must mean, yeah, the servers were compromised. No, she's not doing that. None of this is random. That's not the way she thinks anyway. She's not a random person. She's a logical. She's a procedural person, a hierarchical thinker, as we say, very structured. She is saying these things in the complaint because she has evidence to prove it. And that evidence is not yet known by the public. But it may explain why some Democrats behind the scenes are beginning to panic. why there is an adult diaper shortage in the DC area at this very moment, because uncontrollable crappage will be the result of the SCOTUS hearing these arguments and talking to these witnesses and getting major, airdrops of of intel that was gathered by Kraken. That's what's coming, which is why there actually is a chance that this can be won in the courts, which would eliminate the entire military option, or what I call the national defense option. But Trump is so far ahead of the game here that he doesn't put all his faith in the courts. Instead, he's ready for the next option in case the courts don't uphold the rule of law. And this explains what I've been covering the last few days, is that it's important to understand the relationships here of Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn. Not only do they have an attorney-client relationship, I believe they also have an intelligence sharing relationship, that Flynn is running Trump's private intelligence group. Sidney Powell is a member of that private intelligence group, and she has access to that intelligence and is using it to formulate her complaints and also to recruit expert witnesses. And it's not hard to recruit those witnesses because they want to be part of history. The minute they see this evidence, they totally want to sign up. They want to be the voice to lay this out because they know this is going to change the course of history. And Trump has known this all along from day one. This is why he's out golfing. He's not worried. He knows they've got all the evidence. They've got dramatic, compelling, earth-shattering evidence. Now it's just a question of the proper channels to present it. How do you communicate this to the public? And by the way, along that line, Trump has the National Emergency Broadcast System. So Trump could quite literally post a video with something as simple as a PowerPoint slideshow, which I'm sure his team can put together something super compelling that explains everything. Trump could activate the National Emergency Broadcast System and broadcast out a clickable link to everybody's cell phone all across the country. Click on this link, watch this presentation. This lays out the cyber warfare crimes, the vote fraud, how the Democrats got caught, everything. Just lays it all out and maybe declassifies a bunch of stuff at the same time. Who knows? Trump doesn't need Twitter to talk to the people. He doesn't need Fox News. He's got control of the entire national apparatus for long enough to get this done. And then once the people are informed of what's happening, once the people know the truth, that this election was stolen, then it's over for the Democrats. Because the one thing that the American people really rely on here is a sense of fairness. In fact, it's a basic human trait. Even babies, before they can speak, they know about fairness. If you give a treat to one infant and not another infant, that second infant will become jealous. They understand. They know that ice cream scoop was smaller than the other ice cream scoop. There's a sense of fairness that's built into us as babies. And not just ice cream, but, hugs, whatever the rewards are for an infant, lots of different things. But I didn't mean to simplify it into ice cream. It's just like, why is your baby so fat? I've been rewarding him with ice cream. Oh, you listened to the wrong podcast. That's not how it works. I have to interject a little humor. But what we are watching unfold here, to get serious again, is the completion of the circle. So as Trump is outmaneuvering the Democrats and he is deploying and attacking where they don't expect, such as the server farms being raided, he's then taking that information and filtering it then through, or maybe processing it through, his private intelligence group, which is then giving that information, I believe, to Sidney Powell, who's using it to formulate bombshell complaints, civil complaints in this case, in order to make the Democrats think that this is Trump's entire argument. And Trump is playing in a totally different realm. And now if he wins in the civil courts, that's great. But again, he doesn't count on it. He knows he's already won in the national security context because this was an act of warfare. And this is why, by the way, Joe Biden ends up arrested in prison, convicted of crimes of treason against the United States, and why President Trump ends up in the White House, because Trump's got everything. Now, the one caveat in all of this that I've said several times is the only way Trump loses is if he gives up. If he concedes, he loses. If he does not concede, he does not lose. And think about the way he's flipping the script on Joe Biden right now. He tweeted out, quote, "Biden can only enter the White House as president if he can prove that his ridiculous 80 million votes were not fraudulently or illegally obtained. When you see what happened in Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee, massive voter fraud, he's got a big unsolvable problem." Exclamation mark. Now, why would Trump tweet this out? Answer, because he has all of it. He's got all the evidence of voter fraud in Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. Massive voter fraud, as he says. And then he says Biden's got a big unsolvable problem. Yeah, that's right. So now Trump is, flipping the script here and saying, guess what? You're not going to get in the White House until you prove that you didn't steal this election. And this is key. This is more censored right here. This is Trump attacking the enemy in an unexpected place, changing the rules of engagement. Instead of it being, oh, you win by default because you stole a sufficient number of votes, or you stuffed a sufficient number of ballots, instead of saying that it's our job to prove that you rigged the election, which is the standard that the media is using, right? They're saying that Trump has to prove the election was stolen. No, Trump is saying, you, Joe Biden, you have to prove that you didn't steal these votes. This is genius. This is art of war right here. You have to prove that you didn't steal the votes. Show us that these votes were legitimate. Statistically, mathematically, show us the actual physical ballots. You prove that you didn't steal this election, and then you can have the White House. And the reason Trump is saying this is because he knows that Biden can't prove that the election wasn't rigged. In fact, remember that Biden admitted before this election, he said that we've built the most advanced or elaborate vote fraud organization in the history of American politics, or something very similar to that. He bragged about it on video, because that's what they do have. So Trump has now thrown down the gauntlet to him to say, you prove that you didn't commit fraud. Meanwhile, that's a distraction. Meanwhile, Trump's got military aircraft running covert missions. He's got rendition planes, interrogating people in the air, getting confessions. He's got NSA operatives dumping massive amounts of evidence of, criminal felonies on these people and using that as leverage against them. He's getting people to name other people. Trump is already winning in this whole other realm that the Democrats don't even know really exists. So there you go. That's the big picture here. That's what's happening. And what I expect you're going to see over the next several weeks here is you're going to see Trump continuing to appear weak on purpose. You're going to see Trump not win by December 14th. You're going to see a lot of Trump supporters go into a total breakdown panic on that day, which is just a waste of time and energy, by the way. This election is not decided on December 14th. The election was already won by Trump on November 3rd. And the following 12 hours, when the Democrats rigged the vote tabulation machines, Trump has all the data. He already got it. He's already won. Now the question is, how do you ensnare the largest number of criminal Democrat crime syndicate operators before January 20th? How do you do that? You see, you understand the game that Trump is playing? And the answer is, you wait. You let them hang themselves. You let them out themselves. You smoke them out. You let them turn on America. Even the GOP, you let GOP people turn against the president. You smoke them out. Smoke out the Paul Ryans. out there. Smoke out the, the Chris Christies or the Mitt Romneys or whoever else. Who knows? I guess we'll find out soon. You smoke them all out. And then, even on January 19th, what if that's the day, so be it. Even on January 19th, you arrest Biden, you declare the election was an act of international warfare, you lay out the evidence, you broadcast the national emergency broadcast system, you say this was all set up as a giant trap. We got everybody. Here's the evidence. We are keeping the White House. Boom. It's done. Special forces units at the White House. If necessary, Trump can call up the militia. Hey, we need 300,000 armed American patriots. Come to D.C. You're given the right to carry firearms. Boom. Done. See how this works? The only way Trump loses is if he concedes. That's the only way he loses. If he fights, if he asserts his power, if he tells the truth and exposes the truth, he wins and we win. America wins. That's where this is going. Now, there could be things that could derail this, so I can't give you 100% certainty, but I tell you what, if the odds get better for Trump, I'm not into gambling, but I might actually start placing some bets because I have strong confidence that Trump is going to pull this out through all these methods that I've been talking about. It's just that I don't know where to place bets because I don't do that kind of thing. I don't know which gambling sites to trust, But if I could get like 50-1 odds, I'd put some money on Trump. Absolutely. Easy money as far as I'm concerned, because I know what most of the other bettors don't know. And now you know it too, just from following these situation update podcasts. Of course, make your own decisions, decide for yourself, have your own analysis. But I'll end with this. When you listen to people, everybody's got an opinion, right? Most people's opinions are based on very little information. They're not informed. They're not researchers. They don't know history. They don't know anything about the Constitution. They haven't analyzed this. They don't have the contacts that I've got, for example. Many former military and former, Army intelligence and so on. They don't do the interviews that I do. And most of the people that I've interviewed over all the years, I have their personal cell numbers and I talk to them. And they feed me information, by the way, that is not public. It's not part of the interview. I've got information coming in. I've got information overload. It's like Sidney Powell. What she said is drinking from a fire hose. That's how much is coming in. That's the way I feel. Everybody is trying to feed me information about what's happening. I have to sort it out, do my own research, analyze it. This is what I do. This is what I've done for over 20 years. I'm good at this. This is my job full time. This is what I do. So I'm not 100% correct, but I am by far much better informed and I've conducted way more research than most people who just have a flippant kind of opinion. Oh, I think Trump's already lost it. And you ask them why? Oh, well, because, that's what Fox News said. Oh, that's the extent of your research, is turning on a cable channel and sitting in your armchair. I see. Okay. So you're not a researcher. You're a Pop-Tart muncher. That's the extent of their research, is just watching the TV. I'm sorry, but that's not research. That doesn't count. So, decide for yourself what you wish to believe and act upon, but make sure you get your information from sources that at least are spending, 50 to 60 hours a week researching this. And frankly, there aren't that many people who are doing that. There's some, like Steve Bannon, for example, is doing that, right? There are a few, I should say, out there who are doing this, who are covering this. InfoWars is doing a lot of research. They got a lot of reporters and so on. They're covering this as well. They're doing a great job. And there are many other independent media outlets. Jim Hoft is doing this kind of research all day, all night. That guy lives and breathes this stuff. I text back and forth with him sometimes too. A lot of people are working on this. Well, I should say a few people are working on this to the same extent that I am, but it's not a huge number. So get your information from people who are actually digging beyond the boob tube, if we can still use that term. I don't know. Can we? Is that a gender appropriation term? Is your TV female or male? And more importantly, can televisions, can they be transgender? Can they decide to self-identify as no longer boob tubes? Yeah, leave you with that bit of lame attempt at satire. But there you go. That's the overview for today. I apologize for the length, but I didn't even get through everything. So I'm going to come to you tomorrow with more, and we're going to see how this plays out. But I suspect we're going to see more data points confirming everything that I've talked about here. With each passing day, there's another data point. In fact, days that I thought nothing would happen, like Thanksgiving Day, actually a lot of things happened. So, you know, whether it's Saturday or Sunday or a holiday, this thing is rolling. And the data points are coming in, and they continue to confirm over and over again that Trump won this battle before it ever began. That's what I see. Thank you for listening. I'm Mike Adams here, the Health Ranger. Be sure to visit my online store, healthrangerstore.com, for all the Black Friday specials. And even if you're hearing this after Black Friday, that, you know, we have, well, I guess we have just the regular inventory without the specials, but we've got hundreds of products, lab tested and verified, nutritional supplements, superfoods, home care products, personal care. I've even, you know, I developed a colloidal silver first aid gel with 8 essential oils that it's amazing. I formulated this thing. We use Texas rainwater to make the colloidal silver. And I even developed the electronics that do the polarization reversal that's necessary for generating colloidal silver. Anyway, it's a long story, but I developed the electronics. We use Texas rainwater, microfiltered through a Thermo Fisher lab-rated 18 mega ohm deionization water system, by the way. That's what goes into this. And then we put in essential oils, and it's amazing. It's like a natural bandage. We've got this stuff. It's called biostructured silver first aid gel, and you can find it at healthrangerstore.com. And I've been giving this out to a lot of my friends who are shooters, you know, firearms instructors, long-range shooters, tactical shooters, first responders, firefighters that I know, police officers, sheriff's deputies, and so on. And everybody absolutely loves this stuff. They use it. They use it on themselves. They use it on their ranch animals as well. It's a great wound covering for you know, animal wounds and so on. Your animals get ripped up by barbed wire or something, you can use this. It's great. So check all this out at healthrangerstore.com. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for having faith in me and having faith in God and having faith in our constitutional republic. I'm fighting for it every day, just like you are. And we are in this for the entire fight. We do not surrender. We do not concede, period. Thank you for listening.